Well, the theme of our show has been the awfulness of the Tories, but also the opportunities that may offer to others. Ben Habib has had enough of sitting on the sidelines and wants back into the game. Ben, there's a lot of kind of alternative parties around out there. You've had connections with a couple of them. But do you think this is really one of those watershed moments for a political realignment?
It's a very good question. You know, back when we had the Brexit election 2019, which was a binary election, it was for Brexit, I thought this is the time for an insurgent party to really make an impact. And back then, as you know, Mark, I was a member of the Brexit Party.
Right.
And it was with great dismay, in a sense, that Nigel, for me anyway, stood down 317 candidates, because that handed the election to Boris Johnson. And I had already decided in my mind back in 2019 that Boris Johnson wasn't going to deliver Brexit, not the way that he promised it. The country was not going to leave the EU as one United Kingdom. We weren't going to get control of our laws. We weren't going to get control of our borders, and so on. And when we stood those 317 candidates down, I thought that was the opportunity for really changing the political landscape. That was the end of the opportunity in the UK. But you could not believe that 3 years, and we barely 3 years into an 80-seat majority government, they have so trashed the economy, so trashed their political capital, so trashed their reputation, that actually this government is looking at an utter obliteration at the next election. And not everyone wants to vote for Starmer. There will be a lot of people who want an alternative, who want a party that actually believes in British sovereignty, a party that believes in the British national interest, that wants to get away from the EU, that believes in deregulation, that believes in enterprise, that believes in low taxation. What is the ultimate goal of a democracy? It's to empower the individual to make decisions on his own. We have seen that being eroded for the last 25 years. And there were many, many people in this country who want to see that. And I think the Tories have burnt their political capital to the point now where actually I think there is a real chance for an insurgent or something to emerge out of the existing parties, which will then take the country to a new place. And if I can be part of the catalyst for that, if I can be part of it, I will do everything I can to make it happen, because this Tory government, this Tory party is utterly hopeless.
Well, you're quite right about that. But there are people who, let's just give it one more. OK, it hasn't worked out for us with Cameron, May, Johnson, Truss, Sunak, whoever's next. But maybe the next, maybe we can persuade these people to go back to some concern. This party has been utterly hollowed out so that it's just a continuation of New Labour, 1997 to 2023.
And the issue here, Mark, ultimately is not the party, it's the nation. The party's hollowed out. It's got an absence of ideology. It's got no vision. It's got no direction. But they've hollowed the nation out. When they took over, GDP was about £2 trillion a year, and national debt was 820 billion. National debt now exceeds GDP, and GDP has hardly budged. These people claim to be the party that will protect the national finances, the steady and strong, or something like that was Theresa May's mantra when she stood for election. They've been the utter opposite. They've borrowed to the point where they can no longer borrow, and now they're going to tax us to the point where we can no longer pay taxes. And anyone watching, I don't know where the camera is, but anyone watching needs to be utterly sure of one thing. We may have bounced back in the past. You cannot be certain we're going to always bounce back. So when you cast your vote at the next election, don't go for what you know is going to be a disaster. These people have taken the United Kingdom to the brink of collapse. When you've got debt above GDP, when you've got taxation higher than it was, higher than it's been since we were fighting the Nazis, when you've got public services that simply don't work, when you've got more of the population on benefits than ever before, when actually you can collect more on benefits now than you can on the average net wage.
Right. And that's not. And they're importing 1,000 guys a night on the southern shore because they feel that they're not yet paying enough benefits to enough people. So it doesn't matter whether it's the immigration, whether it's the union. I mean, we mentioned earlier that basically they've stuck. We're never going to be free of the European Union because they've given it part of our turf.
They've given it part of our turf, and I'm going to challenge Lord Frost here. I know he's been on the airwaves recently saying we mustn't go into a Swiss-style arrangement. Of course we mustn't. But the deal that he negotiated already fetters greatly the United Kingdom. We're locked into a level playing field on competition, on state aid, on employment, and the environment. Dominique spoke so well about the problems with net zero, and Lois before her. Net zero is an international treaty commitment under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement that David Frost negotiated. David Frost, the whole Tory party, is part of the problem. Boris Johnson promised to get Brexit done. He didn't do it. They're frightened of the EU. They don't believe in the United Kingdom. They don't believe in their ability to govern. They have to see things through supranational institutions where they get their self-validation, where they feel comfortable.